Welcome back to part 2 of the recap, where we are looking at 7 more games that happened Sunday and looking at all the fantasy implications, looking past just the box score numbers or the fantasy point total that you see next to that player's name to kind of really look into, well, what's really happening? How are these players scoring like this? Why are they doing well? Why are they doing poorly? In order to better equip ourselves to make better decisions in the future. So we're going through, like I said, 7 games today. There's already a part 1 video out where we went over 6 games. We're going to go over 7 more. It is Monday afternoon, so the Monday night games will not be included in these. Still 2 Monday night games. I think there's 2 Monday night games this week and next week. So, and we've already recapped the Thursday game. So just 13 games, 7 in this video. And as always, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would be fantastic. And we're just going to get right into it with our first matchup of the video, and that is the Bears at the Bucs. Bucs are 2-0. I kind of mentioned it before the season. I felt like this team was going to be a lot better than people were giving them credit for. People were saying they're tanking for Caleb Williams, and I was thinking, this team, look at their roster, and you see all these players that won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, and it's like, no, I think this team's a lot better. They've had a pretty easy schedule to start, so we'll see how they go. But anyways, we'll get into the fantasy side of things. Starting off with the Bears, Justin Fields, 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He only had 4 carries for 3 yards. The QB 20 on the week, QB 15 on the season. I'm starting to get a little concerned about Justin Fields. For long-term implications, dynasty implications, this season implications, it doesn't seem to be there. What are we in year 3 now? We got to see something. This team's got to start winning. Justin Fields has got to start looking better. Just maybe as a passer or just as an overall quarterback and managing the game, it just does not look good. And I'm getting worried. I kind of wish that the Bears, I don't know if it's the Bears or if it's Justin Fields, just let this man play his game. Let him use his legs. Let him be the supreme athlete that he is, and just see how that opens things up for him and the team, and if they can start winning games. But yeah, it's getting to the point where you're starting to get nervous about what's Justin Fields' future in Chicago. I think it's safe this year, but if I'm a Justin Fields manager in a 1 quarterback league, I'm thinking about maybe stashing another quarterback here. And if this doesn't improve, I'm going to start rolling out with a quarterback that I can pick up on the waiver wire and kind of stream quarterbacks until he kind of gets it right. We're not seeing the rushing, we're not seeing improvements in the passing game. So a little concerned here. Khalil Herbert, 7 carries, 35 yards, 1 catch, 23 yards. I mean, that's rough. You got 50, 60 total yards and with 1 catch and no touchdown. Roshan, you get 4 carries for 32 yards, 2 catches for 10 yards. Oh man, this backfield is rough. Luckily, you didn't invest too much into it. I think Khalil Herbert was the highest pick, and maybe he was going in the 8th, 9th round. Maybe he got a boost because of preseason, but it's starting to get it's concerning a little bit. It's nice that they cut down to 2 guys and they kind of took Deontay Foreman out of the picture, at least for this week. But the offense is just not rolling enough to where either of these running backs are much of a start. We'll get to that in just a little bit. DJ Moore had a bounce back week. Good to see. 6 catches, 104 yards. But, that's wide receiver 26 on the week. That's not amazing. That's not winning you weeks. It's just a solid performance. It's 13 half PPR points. And by the way, I do all my points per game or rankings here are based on half PPR. So, when you get 100 yards, it's nice. But if you don't get 8+ catches or a touchdown in there, you're at 12 points, you're at 13 points. And that's where kind of DJ Moore was at, where it's a good week. It doesn't win you weeks, doesn't lose you weeks, just a good solid week of 13 points. But would like to see a little more going forward. If that's the floor, that's not really the floor, but if he's getting that and then he has some bigger weeks, then that's fine. No one else as a pass catcher really did anything. Cole Kmet is maybe the only other guy that you started at the tight end position. 4 catches for 38 yards, tight end 22. Speaking of Cole Kmet, we did see a decrease in snaps. Robert Tonyan was playing in more snaps, which Cole Kmet is one of those tight ends where the only really reason why he's fantasy relevant is because he's out there all the time. He's out there 90% of the snaps. If you go back and look at his snap percentage over the last couple of years, Cole Kmet, he's out there 90% of the time, and that's why he becomes a top 10 tight end. It's just because he's just out there and he catches enough balls. if he's not going to be out there as much, he's not the type of tight end that can get a smaller snap percentage and create, big plays and things like that. Maybe he catches a touchdown every now and then, but keep an eye on that. If you get another week of Robert Tonyan taking some snap percentages away from him, then it's getting close to, you can just kind of cut Cole Kmet and move on, to be honest. Just to reiterate that, his snap percentage in week 1, 97%, week 2, 68%. So we need him at 90%. He's not good enough to be a 70% snap percentage tight end and be fantasy relevant, in my opinion. And then the running backs, it's pretty split. Khalil Herbert saw 30 snaps. Roschon Johnson saw 21. Herbert has the early down goal line, short yardage stuff. Roscoe's more of the, I call him Roscoe, Roschon Johnson. I've heard that nickname out there. Roschon Johnson is, he's kind of the third down 2-minute drill back. So, but overall, you're not starting these Bears running backs until this offense kind of improves and you can get a more steady, consistent offense where these guys are getting 15 touches each, through the ground and receiving as well. So moving right along, we got the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, he's looked solid. 317 yards passing, a touchdown. He has 17 yards on the ground. He QB 18 last week, QB 14 on the season. So and he's becoming in that range of when bye weeks start to hit or if injuries start to happen. Baker Mayfield might be a solid start. I'd like to see it one more week. He's kind of gone up against two defenses that are not very good in the Vikings and the Bears. So he gets the Eagles next week and the Saints the week after that. So you're probably going to avoid him both those weeks. But, if he does perform well, then he becomes a streamer. Rachaad White, he looked good. I was kind of slightly worried because Rachaad White did not look good last year, did not look good week 1, and I was kind of worried. Rachaad White, 17 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown, 5 catches, 30 yards. That's exactly what we kind of expected from Rachaad White, close to 100 total yards, where 30-40% of that's coming through the air. So that's awesome. He was RB8 on the week, had a good week. An interesting note that I will mention about Rachaad White here in just a minute. But first, let me go over the receivers real quick. Mike Evans, man, I couldn't believe how much he was getting pushed down. It was just like the Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf last year, where they got pushed down because of Geno Smith. And the same thing happened with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin this year. And Mike Evans, man, back-to-back games, I believe, of over 100 yards. And he has a touchdown in both games, I believe, too. 66 yards in week 1, 171 yards in week 2, touchdown in both those weeks. The dude was awesome. He was wide receiver 2 on the week, wide receiver 2 on the season. Baker Mayfield, for as much as you want to talk about him as a bad quarterback, the one thing he can do really, really well is throw the deep ball. So we've been seeing that from Baker Mayfield, which is great to see. Chris Godwin, he's getting the 5-6 catches and 60 yards. It'd be nice to see him do a little bit more. He's kind of a fringe flex guy. He might be more of a bye week replacement if he doesn't step up. Literally 5 catches, 51 yards, 5 catches, 58 yards. He's going to need to get in the end zone to become kind of flex worthy or get to that, 6 catch, 70 yard type of performance. But, he's still doing something. And most of this offense is kind of going through those two guys. It's just that Mike Evans is kind of being the target hog that he is at the moment, or just the receiving, he's getting all the yards. And then Cade Otton, he had 6 catches, 41 yards. You're not starting Cade Otton, but if he continues to put up 6 catches and 50 yards, then he becomes fantasy relevant at the tight end position. So yes, an interesting note that I did have, though, is that Chase Edmonds, they actually wanted to get Rachaad White less involved this week. They had Chase Edmonds actually start the game. Chase Edmonds took playing time in the very beginning of, I think, the first drive. It was all Edmonds, took the first 6 snaps, and then he got hurt. So just kind of monitor that situation. I think because Rachaad White had a good game, they're probably still going to roll with him. But they showed after 1 week that they were kind of ready to bring in someone else to have some more playing time. And now that Chase Edmonds is hurt, I don't know exactly what the injury is, but Sean Tucker is probably that next guy up. So just Sean Tucker, a name to keep an eye on. But you're still rolling with Rachaad White as long as he's going to put up that kind of stat line until he gets benched is when you move away. Moving on to the Chargers and the Titans. Chargers and the Titans. It was a disappointing game if you're a Chargers fan. They fell to 0-2. We will start with the Chargers. Herbert looked better in terms of passing. 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the QB 11 on the week. So, solid numbers from Herbert. But this is, again, I mentioned it with Joe Burrow. This is why I kind of avoid these type of quarterbacks at the very top end of the draft. The Burrows and the Herberts of the world, of even the Trevor Lawrences, these guys that don't give you a huge rushing floor or even some kind of rushing floor. I don't really want to draft these guys that high because you can kind of get these seasons where you get QB 11 seasons and you're drafting him as the QB 5. So just something for future reference. It's too late now. If you have Herbert, you're starting him. Just kind of how it is. Joshua Kelly, we were all kind of excited for it. Another example where it's not 100% true that a starter goes down, that the backup comes in and replaces the starter. Joshua Kelly, tough matchup. Titans have always been, since Vrabel's been there, like one of the best teams against the run. So Joshua Kelly, 13 carries, 39 yards, only 1 target. That was the big disappointment. I think we were expecting him to at least get 4 or 5 targets there. So he kind of busted if you started him, and he falls back to kind of more of a handcuff, in my opinion, for Eckler. Hold on to him until you know that Eckler is back. And, they do get the Vikings next week. So if Eckler's out, I'm a little more excited about Joshua Kelly against the Vikings. Keenan Allen was awesome. 8 catches, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the wide receiver 1 this week, wide receiver 5 on the season. You're excited if you drafted Keenan Allen year after year. This guy produces. They're using him downfield a little bit more, which is cool to see. Mike Williams had a good game, 8 catches, 83 yards. You'll take that from Mike Williams. Probably he's your wide receiver 3 or your flex. And so you'll take 12.5 points from your flex or your wide receiver 3, who he's going to catch the occasional touchdown as well. Quentin Johnston is just not involved at all. It's all Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer. I don't think I would drop Quentin Johnston. If I could afford to hold him, I would. If I have a bunch of injuries and I need to pick up guys, then I'm fine with dropping QJ. But, rookie receivers, they can always come on. And Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are not the poster boys for being healthy. So something to keep an eye on there. Gerald Everett, he looked good when he caught the ball, 3 catches, 47 yards. But he's getting to the point where you can probably drop him because of a note that I have here is that they're kind of using a 3-man rotation at the tight end position, getting Darnell Parham in there. I think Everett had less than 50% of the team's snaps. And we talked about it with Cole Kmet. Like, unless you're like Travis Kelce coming back from an injury, you'll be fine with less than 50% of snaps. But most tight ends, man, you need them playing upwards of 75, 80% of the snaps. And unfortunately, Gerald Everett, 68% week 1, 41% week 2. I think I would kind of just move on from him, unfortunately, even though I like him. Joshua Kelly did dominate the snaps. I thought maybe they would get like Isaiah Spiller or Elijah Dotson involved just because, week 1 it was Eckler and Kelly. It wasn't just Eckler, but they didn't. So, again, kind of monitor the Eckler thing. Hold on to Kelly until you know Eckler's back. I think Eckler will be back, but just monitor that and hold on to it. In terms of the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, he looks good. 250 yards and a touchdown. He also got a touchdown on the ground. If he does that every week, obviously he's not going to get a rushing touchdown every week, but he has, ever since he's come over to the Titans, he's averaged like 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns a year because of that's kind of the Derrick Henry effect of at the goal line, the play action to Henry, and you just kind of walk right in because everyone's selling out to stop Derrick Henry. So if he continues to put up 250 yards and 2 total touchdowns, he's a streaming quarterback during bye weeks for sure. Derrick Henry still looks good. He's not as maybe explosive as he used to be, but he's getting the volume, and that's all that really matters. 25 carries and 80 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches and 15 yards. I think he has like 6 catches through the first 2 weeks, which is really good to see. That puts you on pace for like, if I can do quick math here, I think that puts you on pace for like almost a 50 catch year. So I don't know if he'll get to 50, but give him 2-3 catches a game and he's going to get 20 plus carries a game. Like, the guy's going to be a good running back. He's the running back 9 on the season. So, that's probably right around where you drafted him, maybe a little higher than that. And I think he's still the best is yet to come with him, in my opinion. Tajay Spears, people were talking about, Tajay Spears had more snaps than Derrick Henry. Like, what is going on? Is his demise and blah, blah, blah. Well, Tajay Spears went back to kind of what we expected, 37% snap share. And that's fine. Like, we don't want Henry at 90% because that's when you get hurt. Tajay Spears, 8 carries, 49 yards. He 2 catches and 6 yards. He's a handcuff. Not much else to say about it. He's simply a handcuff. So Treylon Burks had 3 catches and 76 yards. DeAndre Hopkins coming back from the injury. I think he was kind of on a snap count. Still had 4 catches and 40 yards. I'm not too worried about Hopkins, coming back from that injury. They were kind of, I think, thinking a little more long-term. He only played 60% of the snaps. If he plays back to 80%, he probably has a couple more catches. So I'm fine with Hopkins kind of throwing him in there. I still think he's going to be a bit of a target hog. And Tannehill looked a lot better, which is good to see. Treylon Burks, he deserves to be rostered, but it's tough to start this guy. We're not getting any type of consistency. 3 catches for 76 yards, 1 big catch, but that's not going to be enough to kind of put you in starting territory, in my opinion. And then Chigakonkwo had a better week, 4 catches for 35 yards. So it's going to be tough to start any pass catcher besides Hopkins on this team until they start to get a little more consistent. Nick Westbrook-Akine, 3 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown. He's kind of causing problems for all these other guys, for the Treylon Burkses and Chigakonkwos of the world, just because he's getting his. I think he's out there on 2 wide receiver sets. He's playing 70% of the snaps. He's getting 4 or 5 targets. So you kind of wish that would go to Burks or Chig, but they like Nick Westbrook-Akine. He's a really good blocker too. The only interesting notes I have on this game is that Tajay Spears' snap percentage, and I already mentioned that it did drop. So moving on to the Giants and the Cardinals, one of the crazier games, I would say, of the week. Giants make that big comeback and win the game, but it was looking like DEFCON 5 there. But I don't even know if I said that correctly. But anyways, we'll start with the Giants. Daniel Jones was the QB1 on the week. He had 320 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Also has 9 carries and 59 yards and a touchdown on the ground. This is the appeal of Daniel Jones, his ground game. He can get you 50 yards on the ground and a touchdown easily. So that's the upside for him. You probably drafted him as a starter or maybe as like a 1B. I'm not sure. He does have a tough schedule coming up. Let me just go over exactly. I think it's the 49ers on this Thursday night game. Seahawks, Dolphins, Bills. I'm not too worried about Daniel just because he can run. I'm still probably going to fire him up as my starter because I know he can give me 50, 60 yards on the ground. And that's, that's basically a touchdown thrown right there. It is a touchdown thrown or a touchdown and a half if you play in 4 points. So good to see. Saquon Barkley had a pretty good game. Looks like he had 90 plus total yards, a touchdown with 6 catches. That's what you're looking for. That's what you get with Saquon Barkley. You're getting 18 half PPR points a game. 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he was the RB5 on the week. He did get hurt, and right before I started recording this, it kind of came up with 2 to 3 weeks with the sprained ankle. Not what we want to see, but this week against the 49ers, for sure he was going to miss, and maybe it's okay that he misses that. We'll talk about the it's probably going to be a combination of Matt Breida and Gary Brightwell, though neither of those guys really excite me. Actually makes me a little more excited for Daniel Jones, I think, maybe as a running on the ground. In terms of the pass catchers, in terms of the receivers, there's not much. I don't think we've learned much from this team. Jalen Hyatt he kind of sparked that offense a little bit. He had 2 catches for 89 yards. I'm curious if they get him involved a little bit more because of, they came out at halftime and he kind of sparked that team that started their offensive explosion. So I'm wondering if they kind of get him going a little bit. Darius Slayton didn't do. I think he had the most targets, but he didn't do much with it. Isaiah Hodgins caught a touchdown. He kind of put up a stat line that he was doing last year, 4 for 40 and a touchdown, which is solid numbers. Paris Campbell, 4 catches and 6 targets. It's just kind of a mess. I would be interested in Jalen Hyatt in deeper leagues for sure, just because of what he did. Darren Waller looks good, what we expected of him when we drafted him. 6 catches, 76 yards is really good for a tight end. He's going to get his touchdown. So only interesting note there was the Saquon injury. But yeah, moving on to the Cardinals. Josh Dobbs, man, had a good week. He was QB5 on the week. He had 230 yards, also 40 yards on the ground, 2 total touchdowns. That's going to give you top 5 QB. It's fun to see the Cardinals fighting, man. Like, if you're a Cardinals fan, you're excited. It's like, all right, you're making things exciting, but you're also still losing, which is what I want you to do because I want the number 1 overall pick. So James Conner was good, 23 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. Don't think he had any catches, but he was RB13 on the year. Like, from where you drafted him, I was telling you guys, like, good value here. You're getting a potential top 12 running back here in round 6 or whatever he was drafted. Marquise Brown looked good. 6 catches, 54 yards. That's exactly what I said going into the season. Can he get to the just 6 catches and 50 or 60 yards and the occasional touchdown? He's going to have good weeks if he does that. It's exactly what he did this year. He led the team in targets with 10. But yeah, 6 catches, 54 yards and a touchdown. You will take that from someone who's probably a wide receiver 3 or in your flex spot. So Michael Wilson, 3 catches, 56 yards. I like him, but his snap percentage, he was the starter last week. He was not the starter this week. That decreased his snap percentage. So kind of sucks, but keep an eye on him because I think he's a fun player, more for dynasty than anything. And then Zach Ertz, man. Zach Ertz needs to be rostered. You know, if you have like a Gerald Everett, a Chig Okonkwo, a Dalton Schultz, I'm dropping him. I'm dropping him for Zach Ertz. He has 6 catches, 56 yards on 8 targets. He's tight end 10 this last week, tight end 8 on the season. He has the second most receptions in the NFL for tight ends, I believe, is Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, before getting hurt last year, was like tight end 3 the first 8 weeks or whatever it was that he played. Josh Dobbs likes him. I'm all in on Zach Ertz, man. If he's going to give me 8 targets and 6 catches, sign me up. So he's probably him and James Conner are the 2 guys to be really excited about in this Cardinals offense. Moving on, we got the 49ers at the Rams. This was a fun game. 49ers kind of put it away at the end, but Brock Purdy, you know, his first game where he didn't throw for 2 touchdowns, he did rush for 1. So he was, he was okay. I think a lot of people probably picked him up, maybe started him. Hopefully you're not having to start to Brock Purdy and you have someone like a Daniel Jones or someone, with him. But to me, he should be on the waiver wire. Like, he should be a streamer more than anything. I'm not going to hold on to Brock Purdy for the most part. There's not a whole lot of upside, except for the fact, like, he can maybe be a little consistent, and that's always a little valuable. But yeah, I mean, you see what happens when he doesn't throw for 2 touchdowns. You get pretty poor. You get a QB 23 performance, and it kind of sinks your team a little bit. I mean, he did have, like, I think 14, 15 points, but that was because of the rushing touchdown. So just kind of keep that in mind with him. CMC, man, he played 100% of the snaps, first time since 2019. I'm a little worried about him potentially getting hurt, but they are just saying, screw everyone else on this team. It is CMC and no one else. So I'm wondering if that's going to keep up. 20 carries for 116 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches for 19 yards. He's not doing as much as he did in the passing game. I think he has 6 catches over the first 2 weeks. So, again, you extrapolate that. We mentioned it with the Henry thing. That's about 50 catches on the season. I expect that to go up a little bit, but he's just doing so well on the ground that it doesn't really matter. He was the RB6 on the week. So CMC is a smash. Deebo Samuel had a really good game. He did Deebo Samuel things. 6 catches, 63 yards. You'll take that. 5 carries and 38 yards. So, you're looking at 100 total yards with 6 catches. That's 13 half PPR points. And then you throw in that touchdown that he got. He's the wide receiver 13 on the week. This is what you get with Deebo, man. They're not going to go away from giving him the ball. If they're not going to put Elijah Mitchell in there to get carries, then CMC, they're going to give Deebo carries. They're going to give him carries. So, and I think they should. So Deebo Samuel, I was high on him going into the year. He's, he's looking pretty solid after 2 weeks. Brandon Ayuk was in and out with like an injury. So monitor that this week. Only 3 catches, 43 yards. Kind of sucks to see. Hopefully he's not injured. If he's not, you're going to start him. If he is, then just monitor that whole situation. Ronnie Bell, the rookie from Michigan, was his replacement. So if you play in any super deep leagues or like best ball or DFS, Ronnie Bell's a name to keep in mind just because he's going to be out there a lot if Brandon Ayuk is going to miss a week. And then George Kittle, man, 3 catches, 30 yards. I talked about it, made a video. There was the 49ers were the only team where they had 4 players being drafted in like the top 5 or 6 rounds of fantasy, and one of them not being the quarterback. It was CMC, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle. And it's like, man, can all these guys really return value? And I personally thought it was going to be more Brandon Ayuk, which, it's 2 weeks. We don't know yet. It's still very early, but Brandon Ayuk is looking good, especially after that first week. The reason why I didn't choose Kittle is just because you're a tight end and you don't have to do too much to return value as a tight end. Again, 5 catches, 6 catches, and 60 yards is a good week for you. But yeah, George Kittle, man, I still roll with him for a couple of weeks. But if he's going to continue to put this up, it's going to be worrisome for sure. So, but yeah, that's it for 49ers. The Rams, sorry, I'm just taking the notes here. For the Rams, we'll start with Stafford. He looked good again. He threw the ball 55 times, over 300 yards and a touchdown. Did 4 carries for 17 yards. Not great for fantasy purposes. He hasn't been great for fantasy, but he is great for producing fantasy relevant guys, as we're going to get into. Kyren Williams, 76 snaps. I think only Ronnie Rivers took 3 or 4 of the snaps. Kyren Williams played over 90% of the team's snaps. The news came out with Cam Akers that he was going to be benched or whatever is going on there. So that's kind of a crazy situation. But yeah, Kyren Williams, 14 carries, 52 yards and a touchdown, 6 catches, 48 yards and a touchdown. So 120 yards and with 6 catches and 2 touchdowns. He was the RB4 in the week. Kyren Williams needs to be on rosters, and he is a starter until further notice. He is a starter. Coming out of college, he kind of profiled as one of these guys that could catch the ball and run the ball as well. So 100% this guy 100% needs to be rostered. So and started. He is a starter. It's him and really no one else on that team. So Puka Nacua, man, is amazing. Wow, 15 catches, 20 targets, 150 yards. They gave him 2 carries. This guy's a starter, and he's going to be a starter even when Cooper Kupp's back. You don't just go from 15 catches to nothing. Man, if you picked up Puka Nacua on waivers, you're excited. He's a wide receiver 3 on the year. I don't know if he's going to be that high, but this guy might be a top 15 receiver all year long. So fire him up. Tutu Atwell's playing well. 7 catches for 77 yards. Had 100 yards last week. So Tutu Atwell is looking good. Is maybe a flex guy or in deeper leagues. Tyler Higbee, 3 catches and 12 yards. I'll maybe roll one more week with Higbee just to see if teams adjust and try to shut down Puka a little bit, and that opens things up for Higbee. But I'm worried about Higbee. I would drop him for Zach Ertz. I would. I thought Higbee was going to be a smash play. He's not. So, that's it for the Rams here. We're moving on to the Jets and the Cowboys here. Sorry, just making another note. This game kind of turned out like we expected. It was competitive there for a half, and then this game kind of went the direction that we all thought it was going to. We'll start with the Jets. Zach Wilson, concerning, 170 yards passing, a touchdown, 3 INTs. Tough kind of first 2 games to kind of start, come in and play. Bills on Monday night, and when Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and then maybe against the best defense in the league. He did have 5 carries for 36 yards. He's going to get more opportunities. I hope he can get better, but it's concerning for everyone on this team, all these pass catchers. So Breece Hall had 4 carries. Dalvin Cook had 4 carries. I think Michael Carter. It's a 3-headed backfield as of now. They all got 15 to 17 snaps. They all had 4 carries, and they all did nothing with those carries. So this is concerning, man. It is concerning. I hope Breece Hall takes control of this backfield, but right now they're bringing him on slowly, and it's hard to trust him. It's also hard to sit him because you know what he can do with 10 carries, like we saw it on the Monday night game. So I'm a little concerned here. I'm going to try and avoid starting these guys because it's literally a 3-headed backfield because you're throwing Michael Carter in there. Garrett Wilson, if it wasn't for that long touchdown, he had 2 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. That's rough, man. He's a boom bust receiver. the boom bust receiver is just how it is. Like if you have a lot more consistently good options, then moving on from Garrett Wilson might be, in terms of benching him might be the play. But it's also one of those things where it's hard to bench him because like, what he's capable of. And we saw it, that 50-yard touchdown. He's capable of those kind of plays. So, I'll still start him up. You got to keep in mind this was against the Cowboys and they were playing super conservative because they were afraid about Zach Wilson, and they were right. He threw 3 interceptions. So Tyler Conklin was really the only maybe the only bright spot, like 5 catches for 50 yards is going to put you as like a top 12 tight end most likely for most weeks or get you close to that. So keep an eye on Conklin. I wouldn't pick him up, but a guy I would keep an eye on. In terms of the Cowboys, Dak looked pretty good, 250 yards passing, 31 for 38 completions percentage, 2 touchdowns. He also had 6 carries, 14 yards. QB 17. Like this defense is so good. Like this team doesn't have to do. That's what makes me worried about Dak. Is like they're not going to be in a lot of shootouts, in my opinion. They're going to be in a lot of close games where Dak, the Dak and the Dallas offense just can be very balanced. So Tony Pollard. He had 25 carries for 75 yards, 7 catches for 37 yards, no touchdowns, which kind of sucks, but still you're getting 120 yards. You're still a top 15 running back without a touchdown, which is good. Touchdowns will come for him and a little bit better. The Jets are a really good defense, so really good run defense. So you're going to get some more favorable matchups. And if Tony Pollard's getting 20 carries a game, like he's going to have 120 yards total rushing more often than not. CeeDee Lamb was awesome, 11 catches for 143 yards. Jake Ferguson caught a touchdown, but only 11 yards and 4 targets. Maybe I'll roll with Ferguson one more week. Again, he played the Jets, good defense. He got a touchdown, so he didn't kill you. He got you 8.5 half PPR points, which is not killing you at the tight end position. So I'll probably roll with him one more week. I'd probably pick up Zach Ertz, to be honest, over Jake Ferguson. So only interesting note I have here is that Jalen Tolbert took over for Brandon Cooks. Doesn't really don't do much with that. I think Cooks is going to be back. Another thing about Ferguson that's concerning is that he ran around on less than half their passing plays. So they were kind of mixing in Hendershot in there, and the other tight end, I forget Schoonmaker as well, caught a touchdown. So it's concerning for Ferguson. If there's no better options on waiver wires, I would roll out for one more week, but I'm fine with dropping him for a guy like Zach Ertz, or if like Hunter Henry's still out there for sure. 2 more games for you guys. On to the Broncos and the Commanders. Note here, really fun game. Commanders, we'll start with the Commanders. Sam Howell, he's putting himself into streaming territory. 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. You know what he can do on the ground. He'll get you at least a couple points on the ground. He's QB 14 last week, QB 12 on the season. So he's in that streaming area. Like if you are going to be without Anthony Richardson this week, Sam Howell's not a bad replacement. Now the Commanders' schedule, just double checking that. They do play the Bills and then the Eagles, so that's a little tough. But after that, he gets the Bears. So just pay attention. If he has a good matchup during your quarterback's bye week, Sam Howell's a pretty good option there. Brian Robinson looked awesome, man. 18 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were throwing him the ball. He had 2 catches for 42 yards. RB1 on the season. RB1 last week, RB3 on the season. He's the real B-Rob, right? He's the real B. Robinson, not Bijan. Just kidding. But Brian Robinson's looking great, and they like him. They're going to give him a bunch of carries. Antonio Gibson. Now, I will say this. The backfield was more of a split here, but it just didn't materialize for Gibson. He did have 50 total yards with 3 catches, but that's not going to do anything for you in fantasy. I'm just saying it was a little bit more of a split than it was last week. I'll pull up the exact numbers for you. If there's better options out there, then yes, drop him. Don't just drop him to drop him, though. Maybe give it one more week, but he is getting into that. Kyron Williams is out there or whatever. He had 48% of the snaps, so that was an increase from 35% in week 1. So, but yeah, they love Brian Robinson, so I'm fine with Gibson dropping him if there's kind of better things out there. The receivers, McLaurin 5 for 54 and a touchdown. Dotson's been disappointing. only 3 catches, 22 yards. Logan Thomas, 2 catches, 22 yards, and a touchdown. He's tight end 5 on the year, FYI. So he's another guy that maybe I would drop like a Ferguson for Logan Thomas. So he did get that nasty hit, but he came back, which was really good to see. But yeah, Jahan Dotson, he's kind of getting into the territory of don't drop him, but maybe don't start him until we see that kind of multiple guys can feast on this team. Onto the Broncos side, we got Russell Wilson. Has looked good for fantasy, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 carries, 56 yards. That's what made Russell Wilson a top 5 quarterback with his days in Seattle. He's the QB5 on the season. So for fantasy, he's looking good, but he does make some dumb mistakes that kind of, the fumble and stuff like that kind of causes the team losses. But for fantasy, you're happy with Russell Wilson at the moment. Javonte Williams, 12 carries, 43 yards, 2 catches for 14 yards. Pretty tough, man. Like, you're kind of hoping like they get Javonte a little more involved. Samaje Perine was like an afterthought, a carry for 4 yards, 3 catches for 20 yards. I think his playing time went way down. They put in Jaleel McLaughlin more, I believe. I'm just double checking that. But yeah, like he's fallen out of. I kind of said last week, he's like a deeper team flex, but he's falling out. He still played 50% of the snaps. He just didn't do much with those snaps. So kind of bench him until otherwise. Jerry Jeudy, from coming back from the injury, didn't expect much. Hopefully, he didn't start him because he didn't do much. Courtland Sutton was fine. 5 catches for 66 yards. Like, that's kind of what you're going to get from Courtland Sutton with the occasional touchdown. That's just what he is at this point. Like, he's not a great receiver, but he's going to be out there enough to where you'll get these 5 catches for 60 yards, the occasional touchdown. Marvin Mims looked awesome. Only played in like 16 snaps, but he had a big catch, 2 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown, 2 carries. I hope they get him more involved. Bring in the young guys, man. Jaleel McLaughlin and Marvin Mims. Like, bring these guys in and let them play and see what happens. Keep an eye on Marvin Mims. If they start to use him more to kind of give this team like as a firepower, some firepower, I think he could be worth a pickup because I think he's actually a pretty good player. And the 2 carries thing, that they want to get the ball in his hands. So, but yeah, moving on to our last game. It was the Sunday night game, the Dolphins at the Patriots. This was not a big shootout. The Patriots kind of, proved that they have a good defense, enough to slow down this Dolphins passing attack a bit. Tua was 21 for 30 for 250 yards and a touchdown. Like, they had a game plan, and it seemed like it was to get Raheem Mostert a lot of carries, and they did. 18 carries for 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the RB3 on the week. That's awesome to see. So I think Mostert is a starter. He's going to be a top 20 running back as long as it's like him and no one else. And Salvin Ahmed got a little hurt, by the way. I think some kind of muscle strain. Mostert's going to be a top 20 guy every week. He's going to be ranked as a top 20 guy. So you're happy if you got Mostert, at least until Jeff Wilson comes back. Tyreek Hill, wasn't exploding like last week. 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, another week of just like doesn't kill you, doesn't win you weeks. 4 catches, 86 yards. You drafted this guy as maybe as your wide receiver 1 if you took a running back in round 1 and then Waddle in round 2. So you're a little disappointed with that. I do think you'll have his games, but this team is throwing it a little bit too much to guys like Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft for my liking. I wish a couple of those targets went to Jalen Waddle and not those guys. But you can't bench him, and he's not killing you. It's just not what you expected, I think. But I do think you'll have his games. He did leave with an injury, I believe, so keep an eye on that. And then for the Patriots, Mac Jones, 230 yards and a touchdown, 5 carries, 25 yards. Like, you shouldn't be starting Mac Jones in 1 quarterback leagues. I know you had a good week last week, but don't. Ramondre Stevenson, kind of saved your week with that touchdown. He hasn't looked great efficiency-wise. 15 carries for 50 yards, 3 catches. He had 60 total yards with 3 catches, but he got a touchdown. So that put him in RB15, top 15 RB. Yeah, you kind of wish you'd see a little bit more from him, but we'll see as the season progresses. Zeke's not too much of a threat for him, in my opinion. I think Zeke only had 5 carries. Yeah, 5 carries. And in terms of the snap percentage, Ramondre Stevenson has played over 70% of the snaps each of the last 2 weeks. So he'll get his. Kendrick Bourne, it was sad to see. He was kind of one of my waiver wire guys to pick up. But Devontae Parker came back, and Devontae Parker kind of replaced Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne, unfortunately, hardly played. But the one thing I will say, he didn't hardly play, I shouldn't say that, but his snap percentage dropped significantly enough. It was 91% in week 1 to 51% in week 2, and that's because Devontae Parker coming back. So I will say this, Kendrick Bourne did lead this team in targets still, 9 targets, only turned into 4 catches for 29 yards. But if they think he's going to be the guy, then maybe they bring him back into playing time. However, Devontae Parker, as gross as it sounds, if he's going to play 90% of this team's snaps, he's going to have some fantasy weeks, and he's going to be fantasy relevant. I think of like a Zay Jones from last year. Like Devontae Parker could have that kind of year if he's going to be out there for as much as he was. He played in 100% of the team's snaps. They like him. They paid him money. They like him. He had 6 catches for 57 yards. So, like, you get that and the occasional touchdown, like, that's going to have some value. And then Hunter Henry, man. Hunter Henry, besides Andrews, Kelsey, and Hawkinson, I had to put money on someone being a top 5 tight end. I might put it on Hunter Henry. This guy's going to be a top 5 tight end. He's involved in this offense. Mac Jones likes him. He had another 6 catch, 52-yard and a touchdown week. Tight end 2 on the season. Tight end 2 last week. The guy's good. And Mac Jones likes him. So don't be surprised if he's a top 5 tight end. But that's all we have for you today, guys. As always, if you could like this video and subscribe, that would be fantastic. And yeah, drop your questions in the chat. If you have any questions about anything, I will answer them. But appreciate you guys watching this, and we'll catch you guys all